Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you on this May 20th, 2025. I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. And I'm officially an All-American Rejects channel now. We're going to be covering the All-American Rejects as they go to new towns, new backyard shows. It's the most genius PR marketing. It looks like they're having a blast. I hope to make a documentary out of it. We'll get there. And then more on Con Air, the jet that Qatar is giving President Trump. They're now saying, hey, it's just like the Statue of Liberty. We accepted that. Why don't we accept this? Well, I'll tell you why, because I can go in the Statue of Liberty and I can't go into their little fancy jet. And then we'll have updates on the Diddy Trial, plus Blake Lively is seeking sanctions, Rule 11 sanctions. This is a big deal. It's wild. She wants everybody to pay. It's bombshell. We're going to get into this. The girl's got no quitting her. I'll give her that. And then James Comey speaks on the 86ing of 47 and what he meant by posting that photo that he has since deleted. And then Steve Bannon criticizes Doge. He says, where's all the cuts? And I agree with you. We're looking for them too. All right, lots to get into. All these stories and more. It's happening right now on The Rush. Well, we shared this story yesterday, and I guess my algorithm is all American Rejects. They did a pop-up show in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then from there, Comey just absolutely crushed it, right? The cops show up, and then the cops realize it's all American Rejects, and they're like, all right, party on. So they go from there, and then next thing you know, they're at a pop-up show in Chicago. Just having a blast. They did a graduation party, and then from there, here they are at a front yard. The cops tried to shut it down, but look at this view. So people are going crazy. They're taking videos of their backyard saying, come here. So here they are. The All-American Rejects posted this. I don't even know where this is. Are they in Iowa? They're just on a farm.
It goes like this, and then it goes this.
So there's a whole line around the block. They're partying in cornfields. It's absolute insanity. And now some folks have said, oh, I think this is a PR stunt. I don't think they're actually at houses. Here's the view from the neighbor's house about 5 houses down. It's just amazing. If you're listening to the audio only, it's just, you ever been on the outside of the party and you're not cool enough to go to the party, but you can hear the party going on? There is nothing more sad than hearing the faint echoes of a party you weren't invited to. Either way, everyone's invited, but now it's becoming some sort of movement. Could you imagine the All-American Rejects, the one thing that brings our country back together? Because think about it, right? When we were listening to All-American Rejects, no one was wondering who you were voting for. It was simpler times, right? Simpler times. So maybe, you have different political ideologies from your friends in college. You don't talk anymore. Well, just come back together to All-American Rejects, why don't you? So, and I thought that was the end of it, but here they are in a bowling alley. I don't know which one of these parties I'd rather go to, but I'm telling you right now, that bowling alley has COVID. COVID and measles are in that bowling alley. I can see them in the drop ceiling there. Either way, I don't know how this guy has any voice left, but here's one example of an elder millennial like myself who's not too happy, because what's going on is the All-American Rejects, they went into some college universities and some high schools, and they open the doors and they say, hey, we're All-American Rejects. We're going to play at your school. And they got like a sort of a very mild response to people. Because this younger generation doesn't know what they're missing.
Why are the All-American Rejects going to colleges? They don't know you. They don't know you. Come to a 9-to-5, walk straight in and be like, hey, we're from All-American Rejects. Everyone will leave their computer. Their spinning chairs will be left in the dust.
So there it is. Yes, from one millennial to another. Come to the 9-to-5s. That's where we're at. And then, other millennials are posting videos saying, hey, All-American Rejects, can I get 12 hours notice? I have to get a babysitter first. Life comes at you fast is what I'm trying to say. All right, a little bit of levity for you guys as we cover all the trends in pop culture. But let's get into a little bit more of a serious story here. Here's Lisa Bloom on the Diddy Trial. Now, I'm going to be speaking to some people this week regarding the trial. So if you're not caught up on what's going on, it's the beginning of the second week. And it's kind of complicated, right? Because the trial's about several different things. It's not really about, his sort of abuse of Cassie, although that plays a part in it, but it's more complicated, right? Because the prosecution is looking at things like racketeering. Here is TMZ, and they paint a picture of what sort of tone the prosecution is striking week 2 as testimony from Cassie and Don Richard is essential to the criminal case against Diddy.
Yes, and that's what they've laid out, because as the defense correctly pointed out in their opening, this is not a domestic violence case. This is not an assault case. It's a federal racketeering case. And racketeering is essentially a conspiracy among a group of people to commit serious crimes. So he's not only accused of all of the assaults on Cassie, which I think we have a lot of witnesses and a lot of evidence about so far, but that there were other people who conspired with him, whether it was assistants, whether it was executives, people who worked for him. That is something that Dawn Richard was asked about. I was very proud to watch her testify. I was in the courtroom today. And but I think Cassie also testified to some extent about other people being aware and not doing anything to help her.
On cross-examination, the defense pointed out that she never saw him use a gun.
She never saw him pay for the drugs.
Right. And so it seemed like they were trying to show that she couldn't complete that loop.
So the prosecution is laying out a case probably over the course of 8 weeks. That's what they've said, right? They don't have to prove their entire case with one witness. Very rarely can prosecutors do that. Instead, they are painting a picture. You know, Dawn's testimony is like one leaf on the tree, the picture that they're painting.
All right, so they're painting a picture. It's 8 weeks long. We're only like in the second week of the actual trial. So if you're not caught up like me, we're going to do some work this week. We're going to have some interviews and get to know some people that are covering this case. And we're going to speak to some people that have been in the courtroom. So stick around for all of that. But yeah, the other aspect of the trial we got from day 2, or excuse me, from the end of day 1, the end of day 1 from the second week yesterday, is that Cassie's ex-friend Carrie Morgan testified and said that they saw a sober Diddy assault Cassie. I mean, this case has just been sad. You know, Cassie's like 9 months pregnant, of course, with, you know, her husband, or, you know, she moved on and he's at the trial. And it's like, it's just, I mean, I can't imagine the sort of emotions that go into this. Now, there are people that think he might walk. And again, I have no idea, because I don't really know the legal sort of bar that the prosecutors have to meet. Did they bite off more than they can chew? I'm not really sure, but we'll continue to cover this and see that story that they paint as they try to, have these, 8 weeks of, witnesses trying to examine Diddy for all that he's done. I'll say at the very least, he sounds like a bad guy. At the very least, I think we can agree there. All right, well, coming up next, we've got some friends of the program here offering their thoughts on Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, as this case hits a fever pitch with Blake Lively demanding sanctions on the legal team behind Justin Baldoni, telling everybody they are crossing a line. We'll have this for you next. Well, you might wonder, Dave, how can you keep talking about this Baldoni case? Well, it keeps getting crazier. Our friend Lauren here posted this. In Blake Lively's new motion to compel, we see she is desperately trying to stop Wayfair from investigating her harassment claims, sending a cease and desist and slinging mud at the firm hired to do a neutral investigation. Blake Lively refused to participate. Yeah, that's what's so interesting, right? She claims there was this, she puts forth this civil complaint in California. So Justin Baldoni's side does what you're supposed to do, which is hire a neutral, independent investigator to gather all the information and do all of that. And Blake Lively is essentially saying, hey, this is from a few years ago, too little, too late. And they're like, well, what are we supposed to do here, So again, it's another instance where Blake Lively doesn't really have any evidence she wants to show, or at least doesn't want their independent investigator to sort of cross-examine her. So yeah, she's objecting to that. But what's interesting is the Rule 11 sanctions, and I'm going to go to our pal here, not actually Golden, and what she has to say with regard to what Rule 11 sanctions are. Now, in some cases, Rule 11 sanctions, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, it's when a person brings a lawsuit that is just frivolous, it's ridiculous, and the lawyer should have known better. Well, the other side can do Rule 11 sanctions and say, you should have known better, we're going to sanction you, either they have to pay the court or whatever. It's a punishment. But here, Blake Lively wants sort of a separate punishment, and she's filed these Rule 11 sanctions against everybody except for Justin Baldoni, everyone else on his side. Have a listen.
Is based entirely on the theory that the amended complaint, the Wayfarer-Baldoni amended complaint, does not properly allege who did what. Like, how did Abel get defamed? How did Sarowitz get extorted? It doesn't identify which claims go with which parties. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's the exact same argument that they have made in their motions to dismiss that have not even been dealt with yet. So they are using the most extreme rule and extreme process out there to take action against the Wayfarer parties because the complaint isn't clear.
Yeah, so this sort of extreme action, it's the type of action it seems you take when there's a real low blow, and you have to have the receipts and the evidence to back up. It's not the type of action it seems as though you would take on I don't know, a lawyer who might have a poor case. It's almost like a flagrantly bad case. Well, here we have Don't F With Justice on Twitter talks about the motion for sanctions against Wayfair. They say pretty rich coming from Van Sham. Of course, Blake Lively creating that sort of fake, court case with the Van Zan or whatever in order to get a faulty, sham subpoena. So here are the quotes that Blake Lively included, and they say, why is Lively bringing attention to these burns? And so she puts these quotes together, I guess doesn't like the way Brian Friedman is articulating his case. It is painfully ironic that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of weaponizing the media when her own team orchestrated this vicious attack by sending the New York Times grossly edited documents prior to even filing the complaint. We are releasing all the evidence which will show a pattern of bullying and threats to take over the movie. None of this will come as a surprise because, consistent with her past behavior, Blake Lively used other people to communicate those threats and bully her way to get whatever she wanted. We have all the receipts and more. So it seems as though her Rule 11 sanctions are because she doesn't like the way they're talking about her. Do I have this right? The irony is not lost on anyone that Miss Lively is so petrified of the truth that she has moved to gag it. The immense power that she has wielded in Hollywood, built on pure fear for her husband and their powerful friends, came to an end the moment Miss Lively planned a mass distribution. So they keep going on and on about his media statements. They say Mr. Friedman's media statements have continued to take a decidedly dark turn. On May 8th, Mr. Friedman suggested he would take Miss Lively's deposition at Madison Square Garden, charge tickets for admission to attend, and live stream the testimony for the world to watch. Now, as we've mentioned before, we don't like it when people share half a story. So as they say, mischaracterizing Friedman's quote, leaving out the part where he said proceeds should be donated to helping victims of DV. Yeah, it wasn't him saying he wanted like some gladiator spectacle. It was Brian Friedman saying, no, we want the whole world to see. We'll sell tickets. Let's do this in Madison. Let's air it out for everybody. Blake isn't just hurting Baldoni by accusing him of harassment when he never did anything wrong. She's also devastating the entirety of the DV community by lodging the allegations. So she's got these quotes in her Rule 11 sanctions. And look, I'm not a lawyer, as you know, although I do have, bar complaint hair right here. But I have to say, I don't quite understand if this has the bite that she would think it should have in order to really think that this is like the type of thing you want to do. And people say, well, her lawyers are leading her down the wrong path. And then other people have said, no, her lawyers are actually excellent. It must be her that is demanding her lawyers do this. And so then they have the declaration of Ezra Hudson in support of this Rule 11. So we'll have to see what the judge has to say about all this. But it's getting very interesting as some folks are worried that the judge may be on Blake Lively's side. Could it be that Brian Friedman has ruffled enough feathers with the judge that the judge thinks he's the bad one? Now, I genuinely believe that the judge here will be impartial and do their duties. But again, I feel like any side who's in the court is always going to have that curiosity of what side the judge is on, especially after the judge kind of kicked out Brian Friedman's big bombshell Taylor Swift entry from the docket and said, get that off of my docket. So that's where they stand. And again, by all means, I've found this, you talk about getting these Rule 11 sanctions. Many litigants use sanction motions strategically in litigation. They may identify some misconduct by opposing counsel or another person and bring a motion seeking damages to correct it. By seeking those damages, the party may obtain leverage to negotiate a settlement. In essence, it may offer to drop its claim for sanctions damages in exchange for the other side dropping or reducing its claim for damages. So what they're saying is maybe Blake Lively wants to sue everyone into oblivion, get all these sanctions, and just so that she can use that for leverage in the off chance that this thing does settle. Don't know if it will settle, but anyhow, it's a strategy. And then Deadline, they're not mincing words. They called it a disingenuous charade. Blake Lively mocks Justin Baldoni's long-delayed HR probe of her harassment claims. And again, she's, filed her letter. I'm not going to read it for you guys here because there's just a lot to get into. But she, filed her letter that explained why she wasn't going to participate in the Baldoni's company harassment claims. But as they say, well, she never actually filed claims in the first place. So she filed all these claims late, and now she's mad that we're investigating it late. Should we have read her mind? Should we have known ahead of time what she was going to do and pre-investigated in some sort of weird minority report type of thing here? Either way, this afternoon we'll discuss more of the PR angle, where some PR experts are saying, hey, say what you want about this, but Blake Lively's starting to hit her stride with getting more positive PR. After months of Justin Baldoni really controlling the story, some folks are wondering, is she making a metaphorical comeback here? Now, you might say, Dave, that's ridiculous. But again, our heads are so far up the ass of this trial that it's hard to even understand. When people ask me about this, I go, what do you want to know? I mean, we could talk about this for days, hours, So anyhow, let's do this. Let's reset the deck. We're going to come back and have a conversation about Doge, and James Comey addresses his 8647 Seashells post. That coming next. Anyone else bored with this season of politics? Yeah, getting annoyed by it. Here's James Comey, former FBI director, explaining his 8647 post that led to the Secret Service meeting. Now, of course, we covered this at the end of last week. It made news for half a day and then it went away. But everyone tried to make it look like, or not everyone, but a lot of people were saying, oh, James Comey is calling for violence. James has a different thought on what actually went down.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice, my wife, said, why would someone put an address in the sand? And I said, I don't know. And we stood over it, and I said, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And then I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind.
And then what happened?
I got a call from the Secret Service that night asking if I would speak to them about it. Of course. I admire the Secret Service. They're pros. I spoke to them on the phone. Then they asked the next day when I got home, would I be willing to come in and meet them in person at the Washington field office, which again, I did.
There it is. Much ado about nothing. Now, I hate, you know what I hate more than anything? I hate people who try to just bend the truth into their direction. 86, people go, I see the comments, you're right. 86 means 6 feet down, 8 feet wide. It's a mom boss thing. Listen, shut up, okay? 86 means get it out, leave, move it, right? So 8647 means get him out of office. That's all it means. And, they've showed posts from other Republicans saying 86 Mitch McConnell, 8646, 8645, whatever. So, and yeah, I think this is so stupid, you know what I mean? Because they got us arguing about this stuff. Meanwhile, they're about to gut health care for the poor and the elderly, and they've stripped all of these resources in different programs that were helping farmers and helping small businesses, and all these different things are going on, and we're fighting these kind of like quasi culture war. Like, is it a blue dress or a gold dress? Whatever those stupid cultural moments are. And again, anybody who's going to tell me that 86 means assassinate, I'm sorry. You're sipping some weird Kool-Aid. Here we have, and speaking of sipping the Kool-Aid, here we have Bissett, Secretary of the Treasury, defending Trump's plan to accept a $400 million jet from Qatar. Now look, I'm exhausted by this story. This is another one of those dumb stories where we can't come to the same agreement of what this is, a bribe from a rich Middle Eastern country. Absolutely ridiculous. Listen to how Bessent tries to compare a jet that, when it's done being used by the president, would be transferred over to his private presidential library, and he wants to compare that to the Statue of Liberty. No, sir, that is not operating in good faith.
Trump says he's giving it to him as a nice gesture. You're a hard-nosed businessman. Even if Qatar isn't asking for anything in return now for the jet, I mean, that's a bill that could come due. Nobody in the Middle East gives things or anywhere in the world, just gives a $400 million jet just to be nice.
Well, I don't know, Jake. The French gave us the Statue of Liberty. The British gave us the Resolute desk. I'm not sure they asked for anything in advance.
Listen, some desk you bought at IKEA is a little different than a $400 million plane. This is ridiculous that we have leaders that are in charge. And again, he's not a dumb guy. The guy's like a billionaire. Again, there are some dumb billionaires. But the fact that they're peddling at him out there, putting some makeup on him, and having, he'll go speak for us. Yeah, compare it to the Statue of Liberty. Just first of all, the Statue of Liberty is a statue. It's not going to go sit in somebody's private driveway and used by them to, live out their days golfing and putting seashells together so James Comey and him can take photos of, 8647 or whatever they do. This is, it's like, what world do we live in if we're not all on the same page when we call bullshit? That's literally everything we do on my channel. That's what comedians do, right? You call bullshit. You see in the audience, bullshit. You see some weird stuff going on, bullshit. And then I'm looking at this going, is there actually anybody who's defending this?
And the more important airplane deal was there's $100 billion of orders from Qatari Airlines to Boeing. Kelly Ortberg, the CEO of Boeing, was with us in the Middle East. This is the biggest order in the company's history. Mm. So. I think that plane deal is much more important than this other one.
Well, I will just say about the Statue of Liberty, I mean, that was authorized by Congress, and it belongs to the American people. It doesn't belong to whoever was president at the time.
Well, I think that this plane would be a gift to the American government.
There it is. Well, in that case, let's all take a flight. Can we go to the... do we all get keys to the, Trump Con Air? Can we do that? All right, our final clip here. Here's Bannon slamming Doge. Now, I got to tell you, this guy, Steve Bannon, he is bad news. This guy, he's actively trying to get Trump to run for a third term. I guess he's already run for 3 terms. He's been in office for 2 terms. The other term, he says, was stolen, but we know it was, and it was a fair election, right? But now he wants Trump in for a third term here. Just again, Steve Bannon served time in jail for scamming people on the Build the Wall stuff. Do you remember that? He was caught scamming and went to jail. He's a bad guy. But at least a broken clock is right twice a day. And in this moment, he criticizes Doge for, and again, because he has weird beef with Elon Musk, but he criticizes Doge for the fact that they haven't really done anything meaningful.
This is my question. Why have we not found actual fraud? Not $1 trillion, a couple of $100 billion. Where is that?
If they have found it, they haven't given me the receipts. Okay? I'm where you are. It's like, okay, I keep hearing these numbers. Where are the receipts?
Yeah, and look, we all are saying the same thing. If Doge found all this fraud, how come there hasn't been one single person? And the answer to that is, well, that's because there were government agencies already set up to make sure that fraud was weeded out. Now, look, there's inefficiencies that exist out there, absolutely. I did want to make a correction. I said that Steve Bannon went to jail for defrauding people. He actually went to jail for contempt, but he pled guilty to defrauding people in a private scheme for a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. He won't serve jail time because of this plea, but he raised $25 million with donors connected into the We Build the Wall campaign, but he didn't actually build the wall. This is a piece of shit guy. They're all scam artists. From the Trump watches to the crypto coins to this to that, they're all just squeezing money for themselves. And so this idea, this laughable idea that they are here draining the swamp, they're just making the swamp bigger and they're getting rich in the process. I don't know what else to say. I think at this point, just about everybody agrees with me on that. It's a wild time to be alive. It certainly is. That's going to do it for us. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of content today because we are already rip-roaring with all of these stories. So stick around this afternoon. We'll be back. And if you want some content in the meantime, go to patreon.com/Dave Neal. That's patreon.com/Dave Neal, where I've got all of your private membership live streams. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.